Launch day. Yeah, that's launch day for this book right here. Own Your Freedom, Sustainable Wealth for a Volatile World. This is a book that I had the idea, the forethought to begin the outline for a little over a year ago. And I, just so you know who I've got here with me today, I've got some great friends. My first one here is Lee Miltier. Lee, thanks for being on with us.
Very happy to be on with you because I love this book.
Well, Lee, thank you so much.
Book.
Just so people get to know who you are a little bit. And Lee, I take our full 20-minute slot if I gave you all of your resume here, so I'm not going to do that. But Lee's the president, founder of Miltier Inc. She is a internationally known, celebrated entrepreneur. The list goes on and on, but she's a professional speaker. She runs coaching programs. She is the founder of Millionaire Smarts, the coaching program which supplies coaching for other coaches and businesses. She hosts Untamed Success, which thanks for having me on in the last month or so. Positive TV, a monthly web-based TV show. She speaks all over North America, Europe, conventions. She's the author of multiple books. She and I have a common connection through a tribe of like-minded thinkers, starting with really the top is Dan Kennedy, who is, I'm happy to say, is my co-author in this book, who I asked Lee a little bit over a year ago after Dan had come back from near-death experience. I said, Dan, would you be open to a project? And we both know that Dan protects his personal autonomy, his sovereignty, like nobody's business. I mean, that's really where I started to ascertain my idea of boundaries and freedom from Dan. And I knew Dan wouldn't just say yes to anything. So it had to be something that he felt good about. And I think, you and I both know that where he stands, both from a personal standpoint, politically, on our freedoms and what this country is built on. You, Lee, are exactly the same. You came from a very entrepreneurial family. Your father, you've spoken many times about your upbringing there and how you learned very quickly what it was like to be an entrepreneur, not to be given anything in life, but to have to take it by the hand and grasp at everything. And one of the quotes that actually I put in the book because I love it from you, and you've got many, but you said, in life, there are no victims, only volunteers. Tell us a little bit about that. What does that mean?
Well, it's something my father used to say, and it used to get a little pushback. Well, people will go, well, what about somebody, who got hurt or this or that? And he goes, what I'm referring to is if you keep making mistakes and bad judgment in life, you're not a victim. You're just making bad decisions, and that you can't hide behind victimhood, particularly with what we do in life. And my father was a rancher. He said, you have to be 100% responsible for every single thing. You can't say it's my manager's fault or the guy who was doing this or that fault. He said, if you don't have your eyes on things and you're not paying attention, he said, things will get away from you. And then you're going to claim you're a victim. He said, that's just never going to cut it in the Miltier household. And so you've got to be responsible, whether you like it or not. And that means doing your due diligence. It means reading things, going to the proper experts, and making sure you vet those proper experts very well. So it was when we, at the end of the day, David, we would sit around the oak table and have dinner, and my father would say to me every day, what did you learn today? What did you learn today? What did you go out and seek to learn today? Not what school taught you, but what did you go out and seek? So my father was very relentless in making me a tough gal and be responsible for myself. And so we just can't be victims in the world. And so many people are just sticking their heads in the sand. David, they're pretending like bad things aren't happening. They're pretending like freedoms aren't being taken away. They just think things are they should just go along to get along. And that is being a victim. That is saying, I'm not responsible for my life. You've got to be responsible.
Lee, along with that, as you said, a lot of people are feeling that either they're putting their heads in the sand, or they're afraid. They have fear about standing on what they know inherently are the convictions brought up in a similar fashion, that we only choose to be victims if that's what we choose to do. But a lot of people are finding it difficult. And Lee, it's okay to get a little bit political here, because look, we can't talk about freedom without talking about politics. So I give you free reign to go. But the problem, and I want to be real upfront about it, is that we've had decades now of indoctrination starting back in the 50s, where we've really had back then it was an undercurrent, but of this movement towards socialism, collectivism. Really, it's out and out Marxism, communism today. I'm just going to state it. The problem is there's a lot of fear today about saying, but I don't believe that. But and you're one that speaks the truth. You're not afraid. What can we, as individuals, without putting ourselves up there, out there where we're just going to get our heads figuratively shot off? What do we do? How do we? And you talked about your family. You talked about your dad. They're talking about asking you every day, what did you learn? So where's our responsibility? That's my question. Where's our responsibility?
Well, your first responsibility is get the hell off mainstream media and find other sources that will be more reliable and give you more truth. David, you may or may not know this. I had a 10-year TV career, and I had 3 TV shows, and I was on a lot of television, and I auditioned for a lot of news stations. And I never got hired because they always said to me, I was too argumentative about what was being said.
Mm-hmm.
And because I have friends in the business who say to me, I'm afraid for my job because it is nothing but pure lies that are being portrayed on the news about the economy, about the government, about healthcare, about everything. And they're terrified. And so get off mainstream news, check out other things, and open your mind to that there actually might be a really bad plot that's been in stage and play for a very, very long time. And I just tell the truth, and you can't be afraid anymore, because if you allow fear, fantasized experiences appearing real, to take you over, you will not take the right actions. You will be tentative. You're waiting for somebody else to tell you what to do. One of the most important things you need to do is listen to your gut. The minute all of this started happening, David, my gut went crazy. Like, whoa, wrong. We have this automatic instinct that is built inside of us that most people being stuck to their, it's not smartphones anymore. They're idiot phones that, I'm going to go down a little rabbit hole. So yesterday, it's like 12 teenage kids crossed the street, not once looked to see if a car was coming, not one. Now, you cannot put these people in charge of your future, because they are completely brain jacked and they're completely not aware of anything other than what is being fed to them. So just wake up. One of the things I really liked about your book, and there it is that, you're encouraging people to, be sovereign, to do the things that protect you. I know since I read your book, I will share this with you. What little bit I had in the stock market, I've cashed out. I've increased my real estate holdings, my real life things. I am not trusting the government. I am not trusting mainstream media. I am looking for people who will just brutally tell the truth. And I am one of those people. I've been friends with you for a long time, been friends with Dan for more years than I'm willing to tell everybody, but a lot of years. And having someone like Dan who is like so brutally truthful, when we talk, we really talk about what's really happening. And we're so concerned about people who are just going along with the program. They just think everything's going to sort of work out. But we're at a very crucial point in time in history that we have to be responsible for anything that happens in our life, our business, our investments, who we associate with, every single thing. And people are revealing themselves, David, all the time.
Yes.
And I have been thrown out of circles because I'm telling the truth, because I'm saying I'm not wearing a damn mask all the time. Have you read the research about the mask? It's much worse for you than the disease. I'm not playing the game of following along. I am being an independent business owner, making decisions for myself that resonate with my intuition, my instincts, what feels right. And we've all just got to step up to the plate.
A few people are jumping on with this, Lee. People that I know. Darlene Root, thank you so much. She got a copy of the book last week, and she's one of my. We're mutual fans of each other. Again, someone who's very, very much in her own right, a sovereign person, entrepreneur all the way. And then Melissa Hammaker, she put us a note in there. Well, there it is right there. She says, as a millennial, it's critical to take as much knowledge as you can from trusted and verified sources that have the right values at their core. See, I think that's important. And we have this thing, Lee, that I think we have labeled as groupthink. The herd mentality. What you're saying, of course, and what I'm saying is we have to push away from that because it's so easy to get sucked in to conforming. Well, there's safety in numbers. Not so true. I mean, think about the Pied Piper. There's lots of numbers following the Pied Piper right off the proverbial cliff, right? We got the same thing happening today with all generations. It's not just the millennials, Melissa Hammaker, and she's one that is definitely outside the reign of most. That's why I love her in our group, because she's one of those who gets it. She knows the truth. She seeks the truth. Let's talk about the power of association. Now, you've alluded to it a little bit already, finding the right people, vetting sources, but talk about what you found in your life in the associations that you've made from, what we call the tight inner circle, those people that are really tight in your inner circle, to those outer rings of the right people. And how do we diplomatically keep the wrong ones from infiltrating our ecosystem?
Well, the way to keep the wrong ones is just tell the truth. They do not like the truth. They do not like if you're not going to follow the program, if you're not wearing a mask. I refuse to have my picture taken with a mask on anywhere on social media. And I've stated so. And a bunch of people, attack me. Fine, delete, goodbye. Yeah. You have revealed yourself. You are not a part of my aligned group. I'm very, very fortunate to be a member of a lot of martial arts people. Martial arts, I guess I have that kick-ass personality. They really like what I teach, and it's about mindset, and it's about truth and integrity, doing the right thing. And one of the great things about me being so involved with martial arts is that, these people are fearless. They say what they think with great conviction. And as we get out of that, circle, and here's one of the great news. All my Millionaire Smart sponsors and people who sponsor me and my personal clients are on our page. I have not lost people say, well, if you tell the truth, you'll lose your clients, patients, and customers. And the opposite has happened for me. I have gained more of all of those because I've been truthful about things, and I'm not hiding, and I'm not painting a pretty picture when it's not a pretty picture. And the further I get out from the world, and I call regular people civilians. So,
that's a very tame word, but I think I'll go with that. Yes.
Okay, civilians. So civilians, God bless them. They were brought to believe that, you go up the ladder, you do all the things right, you'll be rewarded. Well, we're entrepreneurs and business owners. We can't go up the ladder. We got to jump to where we want to be. And then, sometimes you just have to learn how to do it as you jump, but you can't wait. You can't wait to some safe environment. You have to be navigating your world now and acknowledging who is really an ally, who is an asset to you, and who is a liability. And I consider all people who are chicken and terribly afraid of a virus that is almost a 99% chance of survival if you actually get it, folding into taking things, I call it the cure, taking the cure without investigating what's in the cure. Mm-hmm. But that's fine. It's just that don't force us to do it. Should be things that we want to do. When people start forcing entrepreneurs to do things, there's going to be a lot of pushback. And there should be a lot of pushback. Show us evidence. Don't just tell us what to do. So I'm just here to support you, David, and what you and Dan have done. And Dan and I have been friends for a long time. And as he was writing his part of the book, we had lots of conversations of how important the book was and how important entrepreneurs in general and self-employed, particularly doctors, need to pay attention. You have to be self-governing.
Well, one of our doctor friends, Dr. Nathan Ho, he's watching today. He actually just jumped in and said, "Hey, he's viewing us today." And he's been part of Planet Dan and magnetic marketing. And Dr. Ho, he's actually here in Dallas. I met him several years ago. His family came from Vietnam. So you talk about a family of origin who came with literally nothing on their backs. And actually his story's in my book. So if you want to hear more about it, he just happened to be on. I saw his name. I had to put his story in the book because his is a story of so many immigrants who come here with literally nothing. Why do we have so many people that want to come to this country? And again, I'm pushing back on the people who the leftists, the progressives who are down on this country saying this country's bad. Why do we have people from other countries that came from no freedom or very limited freedom, if any at all? Why do they want to come here? Why do we have hordes of people pouring in on the southern border right now? Because our country's so bad? No, because this country actually offers opportunity. But what we're finding is that the powers to be, those that want to control, are trying to create more dependency, more dependence rather than self-dependence, self-reliance, which is what this book is about. This book is not a political book. This book is not political. Maybe my introduction is a little bit political just to set the stage, but I was very careful, and Dan was to really make this book about principles. So I don't care what your background philosophy is about life. If you really value being able to make decisions for yourself, for your children, your families, and decide where you live, what you get to do, where your kids go to school, what they're taking in, this book is about principles. What I say is put your oxygen mask on first. If you don't yourself have your own position in a mode of self-reliance or moving toward that position, then you're going to be dependent. And that's unfortunately not just this country, but other countries in this world that are run more by dictatorship. They want the citizens, the civilians, to be dependent so that they control everything. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what's happening. So I want a grassroots movement here. I want people to take what we're talking about today, take this book, find their tribe, because you need to do this with other groups of people. If you try to do it by yourself, it's lonely, right, Lee? It's very lonely to try to go solo in anything in life. There are like-minded people everywhere. You just have to get out and find them.
You know, one of the things I loved about your book, which I think everybody needs to pay attention to, is critical thinking. And that is not taught anywhere anymore at all. And this is where people have really fallen off the cliff. They are not making common sense isn't even part of equations anymore in our government and in our healthcare. And so when we're doing investments and we're protecting ourselves for the future, we really have got to get into critical thinking. And you and Dan both were brilliant, actually, in describing about how important critical thinking is. And Dan talked a lot about money and how, you know, money moves. And this is information that's hidden from the general public. And you may be a person, not you, David, but our audience, that doesn't necessarily read financial books so much, but to understand how you make money, how it moves, what it's attracted to, what it, you know, falls away from, is very, very important. And I think that critical thinking and the whole concept of money in your book is something, by the way, every senior in college should be made to read as a required book, because it would give them insights that they're not getting other places.
I think it's so important, as you said, with critical thinking, that each one of us has to always be willing to question. I question everything, everybody I hear, read, wherever it is. I question it. I don't care if it's a person that I truly respect. I still am going to question to make sure that I am filtering through the noise, that there's actually truth there. I mean, I'll do enough research to make sure that person is not potentially leading me astray, not because they're trying to be fraudulent, but they may have a belief that I don't particularly believe, or I'm going to have more context to say, why are they saying this, right? It's that ability to not just sit back and, as you said, just take it, which is what's unfortunately happening through our government run. I call them not education systems, but indoctrination systems. I mean, that's what we have today, is they are feeding the minds of very susceptible young people and creating generations of dependence.
Well, just look at all across the nation, the people are, trying to kick out school boards. Here in Virginia Beach, Virginia, we have just done a recall for out of 8 school board. We're trying to recall 6 of them who have put in unbelievably horrible things for children that apparently the people above them don't pay any attention to. And these people are literally communist, socialist, Marxist teachers, and they are fighting to the death to teach these kids to hate each other. It's unspeakable what's going on in the world, and yet the average person they've got blinders on. They're, unless they're being directly affected, they're just like letting life go on. And it's everybody's got to wake up, and you have got to exert freedom. You have got to speak up. You've got to be writing people. But first, you got to have, some really good knowledge of how you're taking care of yourself first. So take care of yourself first, and then go right to government officials that, this is unacceptable.
Exactly. Well, Lee, our conversations are always fun. As usual, you made this one dynamic. We've had many in the past. We'll have many more. If you're looking for someone, again, to help lead your thinking, your mindset, and open the door to what you believe is right for your personal freedom and sovereignty, you can find Lee at miltier.com. I'd plug in and learn more about it. She's got a lot of information, a lot of books, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom that I think people should tap into. Lee, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure.
Talk to you again soon. All right. Well, we didn't mince any words on that one, did we? So next, I'm very, very thrilled to bring on a great friend of mine, also a mentor of mine, someone who I think really leads with who he is, first and foremost. Brian, let's bring Mr. Sean McCloskey into the room.
Hey.
There he is. All right. Perfect.
Mr. David Phelps, how are you, sir?
Oh, Sean, great to see you. Well, we've had the pleasure of seeing each other a few times in the last few weeks. It's always good to see you in person, but I'll take it here on Zoom all day long because you, my friend, are, again, a person who speaks the truth. And I know that from your own personal backstory. It's what I love about you. You are a man of truth and authenticity, speaking about to me, to us, to the people you lead so well, about really truth in our own lives. One of the things that one of your quotes is, you say the truth is most people, even the successful ones, however we want to define that, never take the time to build a business around what they truly want to be doing on a daily basis. And to me, that speaks about freedom. That speaks about freedom to be who you want to be, Sean, and have the purpose-driven, mission-based life that I think everybody wants to lead, but many people feel like I can't because, well, society has set me up. So let's talk about that, because this is who you are at the core.
I've been in business for myself for 20 years. I've been teaching this stuff for 14 of it after taking on one of my first students that I ever took on after I was 6-7 years in business, went out and did everything I taught him how to do in his real estate business, made 7 figures his first year, and got a divorce his second year. And it's like, now the divorce wasn't 100% my fault. However, I contributed to it by, I'm teaching him how to run a business in 80 hours a week, which is what I was doing back then. And it's like, I almost quit working with people, and I didn't want to teach them how to run their life into the ground, because that's what I was doing with myself too. And, it's great that he made all this money, but my gosh, at the expense of what? And so, I got a real passion for this after that. I said, wait a second, first of all, we're not being taught how to build a business much anyway, except for all these books that we read. But there's also these messages out there where you're supposed to hustle and grind and sacrifice everything for success. And that's just a bunch of garbage. So today I teach against that, and I help people come up with their own vision for what they want their life and business to look like. And hopefully that includes making lots of money, but also having a life and free time and a family and a good marriage and kids and hobbies and, all the things that you say you're in business for in the first place, which most business owners give up in the process.
Yeah, you've helped a lot of people by engineering their calendar, their time schedule with their personal life. What's most important to them first on the calendar. I'm speaking about, right?
Which sounds simple.
Sounds simple, but who actually does that? No, we typically, all of us, quote, successful entrepreneurs, we let the calendar fill up on us, and then we feel like, as you said, we're spun out in so many different ways, because there's never a lack of opportunities, are there, for people that are creative? No. There's opportunities everywhere, and you really help people. I think the way I'd put it is create the vision by being very intentional about it. You've got specific building blocks to help people work through that, and I think it's very important, as you would say, to do this as a couple, assuming that you're married, have a significant other. You got to do this as a couple, separate, and then as a couple, bring them together, because then you have a common vision. And I use that. What you've taught me, Sean, is that vision, because that becomes a filter
Yes.
for every opportunity that comes up. In fact, I had a good friend yesterday sent me a text, and truly, this is what the text said. It's a good guy, right? Hey, David, love to have about 10 minutes of your time. I've got a couple of opportunities for you.
Of course.
Now,
Yeah.
of course, no bad intention there at all. So I just simply said, hey, I'll say, Bob, thanks for thinking of me. But could you send me, the outline of what these are? Well, that usually slows people down, right?
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
if they want to take the time to do it, then I can read it in 2 seconds and go, hey, thanks again. Probably most cases, not going to be for me today. Thank you.
Well, and I would argue that the reason that those wouldn't be for you is not because you're lacking opportunity or that you don't like to have opportunity presented to you. I mean, my gosh, we all love opportunity, especially opportunities to make more money and have all the things that we say we want in our life, more freedom and all these things. But I now have a tool that I use to filter out those responsibilities. And as cheesy as this sounds, it's called a vision. And this is different than goal setting. It's different than strategic planning. This is overall, what do I want life to look like? And what do I want business to look like? You mentioned the calendar a second ago, and, ask any entrepreneur how they structure their calendar. All of them will tell you, unless they've been through some of my training or come up with this somehow, all of them will tell you that they put all their work stuff on and then they fit life in with what's left over. Or they'll tell you they have some version of boundaries. Well, I like to finish by 6 p.m. or something like that. But they're not putting personal lives in on the calendar first. And we do that around here. We put personal stuff on first and we fit in business with what's left, not the other way around. And now some people would go, well, it's easy for you to say, you've been doing this a long time. No. This process came first, and then we figured out, okay, how do we run a business that's as successful as we want it to be in the time that we have allotted for us? Which, by the way, I've done this exercise now with thousands of people. If you're working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, there are things in your personal life that are being sacrificed. You might not even know what they are, but most people, if they're truly living their personal vision and fitting in work with what's left, there's usually not more than about 30 hours a week left to work. So if your business is designed in a way that requires you to be there 40, 50, 60 hours, I promise you something in your personal life is being sacrificed. And you may not have consciously chosen what that is, but by default, something is going by the wayside. Your free time, your marriage isn't as close as it could be, your relationship with your kids, your hobbies, it could be your sleep. People try, well, I'll just get less sleep. Yeah, how's that working out for you? Try that for a couple months. You can't sustain that very long, So all these things are important, but the very reason that people get into business for themselves, which is what you're teaching here, man, people get into business because they want freedom. I love what you're teaching in here, but usually the business is the very thing that takes away the freedom. There's the old saying of, my gosh, I'm willing to go to work for myself 80 hours a week so I don't have to go to work for somebody else for 40. I mean, that describes the typical entrepreneur. It's like the thing that they desire the most, which is freedom, the business is the very thing that takes it away from them.
Yes, no doubt. One of the things that I find is a common thread, and it's really principle number one in the book, is I wrote about what I call the freedom number.
Yes.
I have the privilege, as you do, of working with a lot of hardworking, intelligent, well-intentioned, driven to success by oftentimes wrong definition. But what I find so often with even high income people is that question of, well, how much is enough? Because Sean, we both know there's never enough. When we don't have the vision to set a framework for what we really want in our lives, then there's never enough. There's always going to be uncertainty, right? I mean, there's always uncertainty. We can't plan for everything. And I have a lot of people who come to me and say, David, been working really, really hard. And for my tribe, typically, they're hunched over. They're working in a very, very small environment, neck problems, back problems, hand problems many times. And it's a great income, but the problem is it's so dependent upon their actual work, which is, we need that work, is they don't have an actual metric, a number. It's really what I've seen out in the real world as an accumulation number. Well, if I just can stack up enough, whatever that is, wherever it is, wherever they want to invest, if I stack up enough, then my financial advisor tells me, then hopefully I won't deplete it all before I run out of life. And that's again, very uncertain. So when there's no certainty or no mile markers to really look at and say, well, where am I? And again, I'm speaking about finances here because that is a major concern for everybody. I get it. You get it as well.
Yeah.
But if I figure out what's enough, and then I have invested in, wisely with discernment, the right kind of investments, and you and I are biased, as many of our people are, but look, whatever it is, if it provides some type of relatively sustainable, predictable income that's not dependent upon the entrepreneur, the breadwinner, if you will, then we've got these multiple streams of income. Now, when we do the work we do, it can be without all the stress and strain of having to work the 80 hours, right? But it starts with how much is enough. And if we don't know, then we just keep pushing that number up and up and up. If we actually get a number that fits within what we feel like is the vision for our families don't want stuff, do they? Do our families want stuff, Sean? Or do they want us?
I mean, it's not, to a certain degree.
Well,
I mean, my kids like our four-wheelers and our fun, all the fun stuff that we do, but that's not all they want.
Well, bottom line is they want you and Jenny. They want the family.
Yes.
And you can make memories. Look, you can make memories doing anything. You don't have to go to Disney.
Yes.
I mean, right. So in fact, I just one of the gentlemen doctors that actually I put a story in the book. I just mentioned it when Lee was on, Dr. Nathan Ho. He's always talking about making memories with his kids, and they're not big, expensive memories. It's going camping. Well, come on, camping. Come on. I mean,
that's the excuse I think people use to not live today. They go, well, we're saving up to go to Disney in 2 years, and it's going to be $12,000. It's like, well, camping is $8 this weekend. All I need is $100 tent and camping. And people go, well, I'm not a big camper. Okay, well, something else you could do it doesn't require you to wait and put life on hold. I love that you teach this stuff, man. I mean, it's so ridiculously important, and we're not taught it in school. That's for sure. We're not taught it anywhere else.
No, not at all. Let's speak a little bit about another principle in the book, which is the power of association. Well, that's who you are, and that's what you create. Association with the right people that share common principles and core values that you have in your life, and that's the people we want around us, because there needs to be a sense of accountability. I mean, when we show up at Leadership Boardroom, which is one of the groups I'm a part of and proud to be a member, when we show up there, we hold ourselves accountable. And you are a very great facilitator, because when we show up and we have at some point previously proclaimed that I am going to carve off so many hours per week and quit doing this or this, and then we show up at the next meeting and it's like, well, how are you doing on that, David? Yes. And if I honestly can't show up, Sean, I mean, you won't kick me out of the group, at least not yet. but
the second time, though,
the second time, but there's a definitive accountability there. And look, we all get off track. Look, no one is perfect. We of course, but to show up in a tribe, in a group, the power of association with the right people that where there's a know, like, and trust. It's not a crowd of hundreds. Like, that's not going to work for me. It's got to be where people understand me, where I can actually peel back the layers, expose my vulnerabilities, because I got them. Let's talk about that, because you've done that for years, again, with different groups and now Leadership Boardroom. What do you find there as you see the typical entrepreneur comes in and but they came to you because they're missing something?
Oh yeah. Well, along those same lines, I think you have to have a healthy respect of the people that are holding you accountable as well. If you don't respect them, they can call you out on stuff and you just dismiss it. But what I've created within Leadership Boardroom is it is a combination of a mastermind and coaching environment, where we have a boardroom where 15 people, David, you're in one of my groups, get together 3 times a year for 2 days each, and we mastermind together. And so each person gets about an hour in the hot seat, where you now have 14 other people in the room that is your board of directors that can help you with anything that's inhibiting you from living your personal or your business vision. So the topics are all over the board. But it's a really powerful hour, because you're sitting here saying, this is what I want life and business to look like. And the room is, extracting from you with questions and statements and their own experience and all of this, helping you to get there faster. Well, that sounds great. It can be insanely uncomfortable, because you're being called out by your peers on blind spots that you usually can't see. I mean, none of us can see our own blind spots as easy as we can the guy sitting across from us, right? And so, when this guy or gal across is sitting here talking, I can go, I know what their problem is. If they just did this, this, and this, it'd be fixed. Try doing that with yourself. This happens all the time, where spouses come to these retreats, and one spouse takes the turn, and the room tells him some advice, and the other spouse goes, "I've been telling him that for a year. Why is he listening to you guys?" Well, it's because you're his wife, and it's different when you hear it from 14 other people than it is hearing it from your wife, right, or your husband. And so, but that's the environment that we create, and so we get. I'm a firm believer that the only way that you can get to the heart of an issue, a real issue, is to be vulnerable enough to be willing to walk through that so you can get to the other side of it. And if you're willing to do that, especially in a small room, remember there's no more than 15 people in these rooms. If you can do that in a small environment and you trust the environment, it is amazing what will happen as a result of that. And so, you're talking about your tribe here. Your tribe is ultra important. I deal with people all the time that they've never been a part of a tribe at all, much less one that talks about anything significant or brings up any challenges. And I mean, we get real. Our stuff is we had a guy at a recent retreat, very successful guy. If I said his name, most of you would know who he is. And he said, I made more money in the last year than I've ever made in my life. I didn't plan appropriately for taxes, and I have a $600,000 tax bill due, and I don't have it. And it's like, how do I fix this? And, when you're in a room of your peers, all of a sudden out of 15 people in the room, 3 people were like, I don't know, I've never had that problem. 4 people said that happened to me 5 years ago. That happened to me 7 years ago. That happened to me last year. They spoke up, contact this attorney, do this and this. And so you got iron sharpening iron. And so you must be in an environment where you can be vulnerable, open, talk about some stuff, and then get real solutions to your challenges too. So your tribe is everything. I'm a huge believer in that.
Principle number 4 I wrote about in the book is concepts, major principles, philosophy, before strategies, before tactics.
Yes.
Very, very quickly, we become very tactical. We have we sense a problem, right? That needs a quick fix. We always want the quick fix, right? It's like let's not build the foundation. Let's just slap up some paint and patch it together and some duct tape, and let's just get through this one, because then I'll be okay on the other side. So that tactical approach, and it brings me back to when I got to see you just a couple weeks ago. You were in a room, a large room of probably over 300 very, again, successful, driven entrepreneurs who were there to share life experiences. And you came up on stage to, again, speak some of your very well taken wisdom. And one of the things you said was, when I come to meetings like this, where there's so much excitement, so much exuberance in the room, and people are doing this and this, and, quote the word crushing this or that, and making lots of money here or there, it sounds great. You said very authentically, I have to be very, very careful. Like a kid in a candy store, right? I have to be careful. You said, I have to intentionally review my vision. Maybe not once, maybe 2 or 3 times to look at it before I walk in that room, because we can all get sucked back into the trap, right? Talk about that feeling.
David, I literally, this is going to sound crazy. I had my computer out taking notes for this it was a 4-day event. I mean, these are some of the most incredible info marketers and speakers and coaching organization owners in the world, I believe. And I'm in there taking notes on my computer, and I literally had to have, on one side of the computer, I had my vision up, and on the other side was my notes. And the reason I did that is because my vision, it's not a vision statement. This is a document that I have that says, here's what I want life and business to look like. And it's very detailed. I work on this a lot. And, but that thing is the filter in which I say yes or no to opportunities with. And so I'm sitting in this room watching these amazing speakers, and I'm hearing about, for example, one of the guys sold $500 million with a B dollars worth of his info products and stuff from stage. And I'm listening to that. I'm listening to what he does. And I'm like, man, I'm taking notes. This is really good. Well, then I got to the heart of the issue later on, and I heard that he, in order to sell $500 million, he traveled 96 weeks in a row without a break and without seeing his family. And so I thought, wait a minute, $500 million in sales sounds really impressive, but that doesn't impress me anymore. You want to impress me, have a phenomenal business and don't have it negatively impact everything else in your life at the same time. That impresses me. And it doesn't mean I'll learn a tactic or a strategy from a guy like that, because he might be doing some things from stage, for example, or in his sales process that might benefit. But I'm not going to model him. He's not who I want to model, because his vision for what he wants his life to look like, which I would even argue that. I would argue he doesn't want his life to look like that. He's just defaulting because that's what business taught him to do. I want to model somebody who has both. And what I found is that's really hard to find. It's really hard to find. I can find people who crush it in business all day long. And as I get to know more about their life, I find out it's awful, and I wouldn't trade it in the world. So one of the things that came up during my talk is I said, comparison is the thief of joy. So I'm sitting there in this room with all these amazing people and I'm comparing myself. Man, I'm not doing as much as that guy. I'm not doing as much as she is. I could be doing I could make such a bigger impact. But the more I dig a little deeper, the more I go, wait a second. First of all, vision's up on the side of the screen. I got my notes on the other side. Does this idea that they're sharing from stage even fit my vision in the first place? 99% of the time, the answer is no.
Yes.
On the 1 or 2, let's say 3% of the time that I say, yes, it does fit my vision. Well, there's the law of substitution that comes into play. If I'm going to add anything into my life or business, something's going to get taken away, or I have to outsource it or something. And so if I'm going to add, let's say this new business idea takes 5 hours a week, where's the 5 hours going to come from? Nobody thinks this way. They just go, well, I'll just add because it's a great opportunity. Well, where's the 5 hours going to come from? Is it going to come from your existing business that has requirements for you to do in it? Is it going to come from sleep? Is it going to come from date night with the wife or dinner time with the kids? At least you get to consciously decide when your vision's crystal clear instead of just moving forward and all of a sudden you've been traveling 96 weeks and you get a standing ovation for selling $500 million in sales and you have no relationship with anybody you said you care about. Which, last point in that, I challenged the room last week. I said, how many of you feel like to some degree you're doing your business for your family and your kids? Every hand in the room raised.
Sure.
I said, how many of you in here have asked your family and your kids, what do they want? No hands went up. A few hands went up. There were my students in the room, right? And it's like, have you ever asked them what they want? If that guy's kids had a choice, you can choose. We're going to have tons of cash and your dad's going to be gone for 96 weeks straight, or you can just live a regular old life, maybe not have a couple Lamborghinis sitting at home and so forth, but you get to hang out with your dad all the time. Which would you have? And I guarantee the child would pick option number 2. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you only get to pick one or the other. I'm teaching you how to have both. That's what you're doing. Yes. I love what you're doing here because you're saying you don't have to sacrifice one at the expense of the other. You can have both, but in order to do it, you better have a strategy and a plan. It better start with the vision.
Perfect.
All right, get all wound up with this stuff, man. I love it.
No. Well, that's why I had you on here because I love you being wound up about this stuff. This is important, and I want people to take this in and realize that they've got to build their vision first. You can find Sean at SeanMcCloskey.com. Is up there right now. Great guy, great leader. Sean, thanks so much for number one being a friend, but also just a visionary for a lot of people to help them establish what they want in life and what's right for them. Thank you, sir.
Brother, thank you for this book. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for helping people get free. This is really important. Thank you.
Have a great one, Sean. Talk to you soon. All right. That was Mr. Sean McCloskey, just a great friend. And I've got Mr. Mark Delatour. I think he is in the house. Let's bring him on.
Hi, David. How are you today?
My good Kiwi friend from New Zealand, but transplanted Kansas City market. And Mark, I've been having some amazing conversations already. It's so fun for me to get to have some of my tribe, my friends, the people I love to run with, because we've been talking today already. It's certainly about the power of association. The people that we elect to surround ourselves with, whether it's informal association or pay to play, or which sometimes is what we need to do, but to be in the right tribe. You're such a leader, not only within your community, within your business. I've just watched you elevate, but in other groups you're a part of, I've watched you elevate in the leadership role. What have you found to be in your life as you have looked back, and I know you're very focused and conscious about your family, just as Sean was talking about. How do you tend to find that vision and filter out the noise from what needs to be true for you?
Yeah, David. Well, first of all, I want to back up and just say congratulations. Big day today. I'm super excited for your book. It's going to impact. I've already been posting it over social to try and get that word out, but I'm so grateful to call you a friend, and Own Your Freedom Will Change Lives. And I want to thank you for your impact that you're having on this tribe. Your question directly about, my kind of mindset and how I protect my freedom of time is one of the biggest ones, as Sean was so graciously saying earlier on. I think part of it is knowing your limitations and surrounding yourself by, in my case, as a business owner, hiring talented individuals that can help you think. I think one of the things that we struggle to do, you can get so busy going down the channel of trying to do. And the old saying, it's easier to do than to think. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a challenge to step back. I love Keith Cunningham reading The Road Less Stupid right now. And at the end of every chapter, he says, now go think, you'll thank me later. Yes. And it's so hard to take time to think. And I think those that have elevated to a certain level understand collaboration They understand weaknesses in their own selves and harnessing onto the strengths of others. And that's certainly something that I have allowed myself to do in the more recent years, is just getting some thinking time.
Yeah, I think that's so important. You're right. It's not our nature. Our tendency is to always be doing, got to do the next thing, got to do it. If we're not hustling, which is what society says we're supposed to be doing, is hustle, 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 hustle. Where do you have time to think? And you've got to make that time to pull away, or be in a small group, or maybe with your spouse, or a few like-minded business associates that really have your back. And those small mastermind groups, or whatever you want to call them, are so important to gain that clarity and have some accountability about what we say we want, but are we really living our life and building our business to fit that?
Yeah, I think one of the silliest thing, that saying, well, if I got to do it right, I got to do it myself.
Yes.
It just couldn't be further from the truth, but you get hammered that from a young age.
Yes.
And, certainly in the schools, now they're certainly not teaching people the right way of thinking either. That's one of the things that I'm trying to indoctrinate into my son's, mindset of, he's starting to think about money. He's just 15 years old, but starting to think about money and business, and understands that mom as a nurse goes and trades time for dollars, and she chooses to do so. But dad's work is a little bit different, where, he's having other people that he employs to do work so they can elevate and help more people.
Yes.
So just understanding the differences between the two has been an interesting mindset shift in a young, hungry, young man. It's been interesting to watch that mindset shift.
One of the things that I a bit to my tribe, and that's professional practice owners and dentists and doctors, who we certainly would say have gone down or up the ladder of education to a high degree, specialized training, specialized skills, which are so important for what they do. Anybody, whether it's a CPA or a lawyer or an engineer, some kind of scientist, where being meticulous and detailed, and that's a high level skill set, which again, we need those people. The problem that I found about people taking too much of a focus, or maybe putting full dependence on a very specialized set of skills or one primary skill, is that it's very fragile. It's very fragile. I talk in the book, my principle number 5 is transferable skill sets. Dan talks about it too. He kind of interwove, with my chapters, transferable skill sets. And I'm talking about more what I call soft skills, but skills that you and I and other people we run with realize are probably the most important skill sets. And that would be leadership, which we're big fans of. And that could be a whole nother discussion, but leadership, communication skills, delegating to the right people, empowering, not managing people. I think learning how to market and sell, that word that sometimes people say, oh, sell. No, selling the right way. These are skill sets that can be taken and moved and adapted in all kinds of different areas. I've certainly seen how you've done that. And you spoke about, well, we can't ourselves be good at everything. There's no way. So instead of focusing on weaknesses that we all have, why don't we find people who have those skill sets, the experience, the desire, the ability to do things that we don't do well, and then we can focus on what we do well, whatever those skill sets are. Speak a little bit in your own experience about how you see skill sets and being more adaptable and flexible in some of those softer skill sets that you've seen work for you or people in your organization.
Absolutely. People. I think, what you're getting, I see marketing, David, almost as storytelling. And I think, what I've seen in my line of work and real estate investments, such that a good story controls the capital, and the capital controls the game. So those, to your point, those that can tell a good story and obviously, back it up, but those that can explain what they're doing, get people to buy in, have a strong marketing or pitch deck, that will control capital. So having someone who's a good storyteller, a good marketer, it's one thing being, the best person at writing a book. But if you don't have a good story to go along with the book, no one will read it. So, in the similar vein, it's one thing to be the best real estate house flipper, but if you don't have someone that's able to tell that story and attract the capital, you'll be limited to just doing one or two rather than impacting the world by doing hundreds. And so one of the things that we've just been, really in our own world recently focused on is hiring the most talented individuals. And to your point, we're really focusing on niche skill sets, but then making sure that they encompass in the same cultural mindset. Your book, Own Your Freedom, talks about, understanding the deep beliefs of what freedom truly means and the 5 freedoms, and, freedoms of time and relationships and financial means, it's so important to others to get the likeness and that tribe together, because in today's world, it's very challenging to find like-minded individuals that you can speak your mind with. So we've been focusing primarily here at building a culture of accountability, building a culture of high performers, but then going very niche in what their new roles are. And as you scale and grow, that's been incredible for us to make sure that we get those people that are hitting it and really targeted niche environment. But to your point earlier, I think that those that are actually empowering the soft skills, they're not taught. They're the undeliverables. That's the X factor. Those are the things they don't teach you in school, and you've really got to go out there and learn. And I think they almost do a disservice to it, because there's sometimes the goofy guy in the room who's really talented and funny and good at telling stories. Oh, beat down. You sit in the back and don't say anything. He could be the most valuable guy in the right business. So
yeah, totally opposite of what we should be empowering or encouraging. I think again, that's a discussion for another day about the school system. But right on point, my friend, right on point. So you mentioned the 5 freedoms, and it's a pyramid, which I put at the base is financial or economic freedom, because let's face it, Mark, we all have to be concerned about having enough financial security, stability, however we make the income, whatever that's derived from, to support our families. I mean, that's our first drive. So I put a lot of emphasis on that. And one of the things that we talk a lot about in Freedom Founders, of course, is what we all love, and it's the asset that we have a bias towards, but of course we have experience with it, and that is the passive annuity, predictable income that can come from well-placed, well-managed, tangible assets, and real estate being the one that we all know, like, and love, something that you do at a very high level. And I talk about principle number 1, which is the freedom number. You're part of it. You understand exactly what that means. It's like, what number do you need to replace of your active income, the going to work, the trading time for dollars, that would set you free? Not to say you have to get out of your business, but it would set you free if you had those extra multiple lines of income coming in. And how do we build those? Because in the normal conventional world of finance, it's called accumulation. Stash it wherever you put it in 401ks or whatever, stash it up. But there's never a learning or ability to learn how to orchestrate and say, well, what could that equity, that net worth, that wealth actually be if I had it in assets that actually produced a run rate of income, and perhaps also had a hedge against what we're seeing right now is some pretty massive inflation tailwinds, or you can say headwinds against us, but tailwinds to push the inflation. Let's just speak about that. We can get a little bit granular here. Why we like real estate. I'm going to let you riff on that, because that's one of your fortes.
Well, yeah. I mean, real estate is that hard asset that so many people want to get into, but they don't have the time, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the know-how, and it's extremely clunky. I think the real estate industry for the longest time, David, has done a very poor job of catering to the affluent investor that all they think they have to do is stick their money into the market. Mm-hmm. I think the timing of your book has never been more prevalent, because the chance to be forewarned of this hard reset that's coming here in the next 18 to 24 months, whenever that is. We don't have a crystal ball, but clearly we've had a big bull run of 12 years to, with another short period coming before we get to some kind of big tank in the market. And people have time to now reset and put their money into a more dependable asset. I've always liked real estate for the fact that it is dependable, reliable, leverageable, that it can cash flow all the while, that you're actually appreciating in value. And then there's obviously some tax benefits of owning the hard assets of real estate as well. So yeah, we coach people into diversifying outside of just the stock market into single family, multifamily, apartment complexes and new construction, knowing that real estate and housing is going to stand the test of time. So.
And that comes back to relationships, because a lot of people who inherently would like to be involved or invest in real estate, maybe have tried it. I call them oftentimes the accidental landlord. Feel like they put their fingers on a hot plate and got burned, because again, the inefficiencies of investing in hard assets, businesses, real estate, the inefficiency is where the opportunities are.
Bingo.
So either you learn to operate, lead your business, whatever that business is, and lead it at a higher level that allows you not to be into the deliverables or operations any more than you want to. And or you also create wealth income streams in other assets. And my favorite's really, you can do it in other businesses, certainly, but real estate, but it has to be well managed. And I think, again, that's the power of associations, because it's not a mouse click to go out and invest in real estate. You can get burned very quickly. So going back to principle number 2, the power of association, who are your people? Who do you run with? What connections do you build in your life, which I think are so important on all levels to find the right people.
Well, and one thing, David, so with regard to associations, one thing that I think the operators sometimes miss is, we're obviously a valued member and appreciative, trusted advisor of the Freedom Founders community. And one of the things that's often overlooked by operators is that it's a long, hard slog to go get ready, willing, and able capital that's ready to go and just put that capital to work. And so, for an operator to have to, be able to be a vetted part of your group and then come in and gain the trust and form those relationships that are so tightly formed inside a mastermind community that we can then solely focus on operations and get dialed in, it's almost a win-win. The operator doesn't have to focus on doing massive capital raises. They're solely focused on building relationships that are more organic and natural and have formed around a common set of principles. So then his team can be all the while focused on dialing in the operations. And I think the association, certainly that we've had with your team at Freedom Founders, has been just a great win-win for us.
We've got just a couple minutes left with you, Mark, before I'm going to let you turn you loose. I would like to talk to you about a chapter that Dan wrote, and the chapter is before you are ready. Point being is, many times we tend to be very analytical about stepping out, taking what we consider a little bit of risk until we get everything just right. That could be a lot of things. Well, I got to have this amount of money setting aside, or this, before I would take a step to the next. Dan says, you've got to actually start setting your mindset, maybe doing some research, developing relationships before you're ready. Talk about that, maybe again in your own life, for people that you've worked with who have maybe been hesitant to step out and start going down a path that they feel like they should do, but I'm too risk averse to try that. I'm just too comfortable. Don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, no, I was actually guilty of that, David. In my own business, I was trying to do all things, and my business, I had dreams of scaling and growing, but was, not ready mentally to take that big leap and start hiring some super talented individuals. As you know, I kind of bottomed out in 2017, where the weight of my business was very squarely just coming down right on top of me and forcing me to have to pick business or family. And that's a very ugly place to be in. I had to step out in faith, quote unquote, before I was ready mentally to actually step into that world of hiring on a COO that would allow me to scale and grow successfully. And since then, now have hired on the director of marketing, director of acquisitions, and a CFO to allow us to scale responsibly. But no, I think there's a lot of trust and faith and understanding that if you are a educated operator that's doing good things, or a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer that's scaling and growing, you have to live in that uncomfortableness and knowing that that's where you grow. They call the speed wobbles, where you're driving the car down the road and you don't want to stop. Hey, 2 miles back, there was a pothole back there. We better go back and fix it. It's like, no. Let's just steady as she goes, keep things the main thing. And I think dialing in, focusing on one thing and doing it really well, there is ability to step out into the unknown with greater confidence.
Yeah, super well said. Well, Mark, thank you for being on. Thank you for being a supporter of mine, a friend of mine, mentor, trusted advisor, and just a person who's doing good things in the world today. Thank you for helping other people reach their freedom goals.
It's my pleasure, David. Congratulations, and thank you for having me.
Cheers, mate. All right, Mr. Mark Delatour, super person, as all the people, all my guests today. And gosh, I'm so blessed. I could have chosen from probably over 100 people who would have been willing to jump on. We have so much time today, so we're going to have time to have one more guest today. And when he's here, we'll bring him on. I won't allude to him until I see his name pop up. But this has really been a work for me, a work of passion to do this book this last year. I feel really blessed to be able to co-write it with, again, somebody that I have ascribed to many of his teachings, and that's Mr. Dan Kennedy, the co-author. I was able to work my way into Dan's inner circle, not all at once, not right out of the gate, because Dan's very, very discerning about who he lets inside, his tribe, his inner circle. I learned that very early from him when I saw how he did put up boundaries because he protected his time. He protected his freedom. And there was something that I really wasn't taught at an early age. I think most of us think that we have to try to be all things to all people. We want to be liked. We want to serve everybody. And you can't do that. It's like going back to the analogy when you're on the plane and the cabin flight attendants will tell you with the emergency instructions, when the cabin pressure drops, please grab your oxygen mask first and put it on before you start trying to help everybody else. Because if you're spread out trying to do good works and serve everybody that knocks on your door or emails you or tries to call you up on the phone, you're going to be too stretched out. You've got to get your freedom, your personal sovereignty in place first. It sounds selfish. But if you can't save yourself first, then how are you going to be good for other people? So be selfish, get your act together, make sure that you're doing what you feel like are the most important things to do for your family. And then you can be a good advocate, a good steward for other people to follow your leadership and the people that you bring together in the relationships you have. Again, relationships being so important part of the book. So again, before I bring on the next guest, let me just run through the 5 principles again. Dan and I wrote this book on principles. Dan really interspersed his chapters very well with mine. I kind of set the outline or the scaffolding, and then Dan brings his wisdom in with different types of stories that I think really help bring the principles to a forefront. So principle number 1, your freedom number, really based on getting really, really specific about how much money you need to produce your current lifestyle, whatever that is. Until people really understand what that number is, then it's a constant drive for how much is enough. The question, I don't know how much is enough. That's what keeps people, unfortunately, on a treadmill, I think, to almost nowhere, a treadmill that doesn't have to be that way in life. So reverse engineering, it's all in the book. The principle on your freedom number spells out exactly how to calculate the freedom number and how to reverse engineer back to what assets you need, not the accumulation, but cash flow producing assets that will drive you towards your freedom. The second one is the power of association. We've talked about that several times today already. The power of association that is so critical in our mindset, our accountability, people that give us the permission that we need to take the steps to go forward in our life. Principle number 3, and I'm going to talk to our next guest about this one right out of the gate, but wealth is what you own, not what you do. Wealth is what you own, not what you do. We're going to turn that upside down here in just a moment. So we'll get to that one. Number 4, talked a little bit today about concepts or principles before strategies, before jumping into tactics, which I call the bright, shiny objects, tactical. Just trying to find that quick fix for something that never really drives you towards your actual vision. And then principle number 5, which we just touched on with Mark Delatour, investing in your transferable skill sets. So soft skills that really are not advocated for in school. The school is all about memorization, regurgitation of facts that really take no one nowhere, I would say. So let's bring on our next guest. He's ready to go. Mr. Rob Swanson, Freedom Soft. There he is, buddy.
What's happening?
Great to see you. Thanks for jumping on today. Your platform, like mine, the first name out of the gate is Freedom. And
That's right.
I've known you for a good number of years. We've got to know each other even better in the last few years, and I'm really blessed, and I'm honored to know you because I've gotten a chance, Rob, to not only value your wisdom and experience and what you teach and how you're helping so many other entrepreneurs create their own freedom through the asset class that we know, like, and love, which is real estate. I've got to know you as a family man. Sean McCloskey and I were talking earlier about the people that we follow. I want to know really what they are as a whole. Some people may be very sharp and very tactical about how to make money here or there, but if they don't really kind of have what I see as their overall act together, I'm a little remiss to jump on board and run down the path. So I'm happy to say that everybody I've had here today, including you, Rob, are people that I admire and respect because of who you are as a whole. So I just want to start with that. I just mentioned something. It's my principle number 3 in the book, which is wealth is what you own, not what you do. Now that's totally opposite what we're taught in school. We're taught in school to get the education, to get the skill sets, the training, the license, the degree, the whatever, to start the career, the trade, the professional practice, whatever it is. And that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having those skills, right, to a point. But is that not a fallacy? And in your life and how you think, is that not a fallacy to put all the dependence and focus on a specialized skill set that maybe is going to provide for you, what's happening in this world today where we're seeing massive disruption, massive changes. What happens to people that just focus on that one skill set?
Yeah, David, thanks, number one, for having me on and just giving me the platform to spread the news about your book, because not only do I have it right here, not only have I read it, but it's awesome. And so to answer your question, yeah, you lay it out in your book so well that, you know, I'm a civil engineer by training and by trade 20 years ago, right? And I had this motivating drive when I was a young kid that I wanted to become an engineer. And once I get something in my head, I don't stop until it happens. And so I went through 5 years of college. I went through 4 years of work afterwards under an engineer to get my own license. I got my license and I woke up one day and I realized, all of my clients were making all of the money and I was billing hours. And it was that aha moment that said, I got to do something to get to the other side of the table. And it's the things that you preach and teach and talk about that, I figured out 20 years ago. I started taking action, and owning your freedom, owning assets, owning things that produce for you, whether you're working or producing or not, is the key to this whole equation of freedom.
The model that is conventionally taught, or I'd say the abdication towards this model, is fervent through our society, and that is, go to work really hard, and then we got Wall Street over here, which you can funnel your money there through different tax deferral programs or taxable, but they'll take care of it for us because, money and finance and investment, it's just too darn complicated. What do you say to that?
It's not that complicated. Does it take a little bit of time, energy, and effort to dig in and figure it out? It does. Nothing in life that is worthwhile is easy, right? But the things that are not easy that are worthwhile are worth it in the end. And so I remember, as an entrepreneur, David, we've talked about this before. We're the only crazy group of people that'll work 100 hours a week just not to work 40 for someone else, right?
Right.
And yet when you do that early on, you're oftentimes taking knowledge and you're taking the skills you learn and you're applying and you're getting paid for that knowledge and those skills. And at some point you realize, okay, you know what? I need to start working towards owning assets and owning things that separate my time from my income. And, there's a conversation that I've seen happen online a lot, and I participated in some, and people talk about the difference between financial freedom and financial independence. And, financial independence is you can pay your own bills. Financial freedom is separating your time from the income.
Yes.
And they're very distinctively different. And I love how you just laid out in the book the roadmap, right? Because that's what people miss a lot of times is they gain a skill. I gained a skill as an engineer, and it was a well-paying job with good benefits and expense accounts, and it was good. But it's not nearly as good as the freedom that comes from owning assets and figuring out how to separate your time from the income.
I love your definition, the difference between financial independence and financial freedom. I think that's very, very well said. Something that I witnessed, and you have too, which we've kind of alluded to in the training that we've each had to have that, relatively high income career opportunity. Yeah. I feel like that the ability to make money, particularly at a relatively high level, is actually a trap. It's actually a trap because you get sucked into that, and it's easy to get on that treadmill where, yes, you start to have some of the niceties of life, the things that, we always wanted. We wanted to have a nicer, bigger house and better cars and private schools for the kids and vacations and trips. And that feels good. It feels like, all this was worth it. But again, that becomes a dependent cycle on what we do. And it's also very dependent upon the economic situation in the country. We're seeing a lot of disruption from various areas, which we don't have to go down that rabbit hole, but a lot of disruption today that's upending a lot of the income production in certain sectors and industries. Regulation today is really dampening down what we used to think a career higher education was actually about freedom and security. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in, and we talked about this when we were together a couple of weeks ago. There's 5 things that I tell people to invest in, and I'm going to say them because they're so complementary to what you write in your book and the game plan and the roadmap and how you show people how to get there. But I tell people there's 5 things to invest in today. Number 1 is knowledge. The number 1 thing that I think people trying to go from where they are to where they want to be, that they need to invest in is knowledge. And I'll give you a little story about that. My kids, 20 at this moment, 23, 20, and 19, have all at some point in their growing up life come to me and said, Dad, how do I do what you do? Or Dad, I'm interested in learning this, or I'm curious about such and such. And we have dove into the online education world and space, and we found an expert that's teaching a webinar and going over some program and doing something. And I've said, you know what? Go find the 3 guys or gals that are teaching the topic that you want to go, attend their webinars, figure out what they're teaching, and then let's figure out which program to buy. So number 1, invest in your knowledge. Number 2, cash flowing real estate. Cash flowing real estate is huge. Number 3, cash flowing business. Number 4, I'm a believer in gold and silver, not necessarily as an investment gain, but as a hedge and as an insurance type product. And I'm also a believer in the speculative investment of crypto. So those are the 5 things that I tell people all the time. But number 1, and it's why I spent the most time on it, is knowledge.
Yes. Yeah, the right kind of knowledge. And then we have to be able to implement action based on that knowledge. I mean, that goes hand in hand, because I know a lot of people, and you do too, that are great knowledge seekers and will, I got a few books behind me. You do too. So buy books on Amazon. That's great, right? And they'll attend webinars. They'll go to seminars with intentions, but nothing ever happens. So did a little shove to get across that starting line to actually do something. Because let's face it, and I think we've talked about this too, is there's a lot of pressure on a lot of successful people in school and grades and even in careers today, that the fear of failure, the fear of making a mistake, and having that pressure of maybe your family or peer group when you have to say, I tried this and it didn't work. I lost something, I lost some time and money. But what would you say to testing or the word failure, fear of failure? How do you look at that?
Oh man, I did a video on this. I'm a private pilot, and I grew up with my dad and my grandpa flying airplanes, and they were both private pilots. Never in the commercial airlines, but private pilots, and we would go fly around and have some fun. And it wasn't until a few years ago, I was at a mastermind and I told that story, and a gentleman that was there had flown his airplane down to the mastermind, and I said, "Man, I've always wanted to do that." And he said, "What?" "Well, I've always wanted to be a pilot." And he looks at me and he says, "No, you haven't." Well, that was the kick in the pants I needed, surrounding yourself with like-minded people that will motivate you to go get my private pilot's license. So long story short, David, I go get my private pilot's license. I sign up, for my first lesson the next week. And this is about 3 years ago or so now, maybe 3.5. And I go through the whole process. I pass my exam. I get my pilot certificate, and I can now jump in an airplane and I can fly. Well, I've just spent the last 40 to 50 hours flying around my local area, airports I knew, frequencies I was familiar with, landmarks that I could navigate from. I was comfortable. And there was that moment in time when my wife came to me and said, "Hey, let's fly somewhere else. Let's go somewhere that we're not comfortable." Or she didn't say it that way. She said, "Let's fly up to Wyoming and just look at the scenery." we're in Denver, right? And
Right.
I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know the airports. I don't know the frequencies. I don't know the terrain. I don't know the landmarks. I'm not familiar with the navigation. Like all of the stuff that this fear of missing out, or this fear of the unknown led to a fear of missing out. The fear of the unknown kind of prevented me from wanting to do it at first. But the fear of missing out, what was on the other side, was greater than the fear of the unknown. And so I pushed through the fear of the unknown in order to get over the fear of missing out. And as a result, we've seen each other now at 2 events in the last 10 days or so. And I flew to both of those,
Yep.
one from Denver down to Tampa, then up to St. Louis, and now back here. And so that fear of missing out, if I can encourage people to let that drive you, because if you stay in your comfort zone, if you stay status quo, you're never going to push over and get all of the freedom and all of the fun and all of the excitement that is over the hump. But it takes a little work. It takes a little risk. It takes a little, hey, let's do something and I don't know what happens next. Action to make that happen.
Yeah, living a no regrets life, not looking back, 20 or 30 years down the road and saying, I wish I would have when I had that opportunity. All right, I just lost Rob. We were on a roll there. Let's see if he comes back. It's very, very important, I think, for people to not dismiss the fact that you don't want to be cavalier about taking massive risk. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, mitigated risk, taking the knowledge, taking that, as Rob said, looking over the horizon, saying, what's over there? What am I potentially missing out on? That is what's holding me back. I think if you look at to see possibly what's the worst thing that could happen if I tried this, or I got in my comfort zone to do that. What if it doesn't work out exactly? It's a lot easier to pivot, to be able to make a move with momentum. When you're staying static, when you're in one place and you're just so paralyzed because you're wanting to analyze everything, then it's hard to make a move. So I think we've got Rob back. Let's bring him back in because I got one more super question for you. All right, that was perfect. No, I love that analogy. And it was fun for me sitting next to you because I just happened to look over at your iPad to see what kind of note. You don't know this, but I actually see what notes you're taking, and I like write down what you're writing down. No, not really. but you were checking out wind. What the winds were like because you were planning your flight out. Of course, that's part of what you learn to do.
Yep.
So you don't just cavalierly just go, well, I'm a pilot now, I'm just going to hop in the plane and go. No, there's a few things on the checklist, but that's
Yep.
part of life. What's on the checklist? What instruments? What am I going to use to make sure that I mitigate the risk, so I can get out of that comfort zone and take that next step, right? And part of that's learning about resources and tools. Part of that's having resources around us, like people that already have knowledge, have already gone down a path to say, well, hey, what am I missing here? I'd like to do this. I'd like to take this chance. Just look at my checklist. What am I missing? And boom, you've got right there, and your chances of having any massive failure are like next to nil. And you'll only learn from what didn't work out right to do it right or better the next time. So, all right. So here's what I'd like to finish with. Again, we could go down a deep rabbit hole here. So you can go where you want to with this. But market cycles. We know that, Rob, we would agree, and many people that are with us, that there's so much that's out of our control today. What we used to think generations ago, like our parents and grandparents, about market and what you would do as a prudent saver, investor, putting your investment assets. Today, people that have taken that route, the conservative prudent rule, who are leaving their active income years and going to that retirement stage, that fixed income stage, they don't have very good choices today. What we used to think of as prudent would be bonds and CDs and T-bills is where you put your money. And back in the day, you could get 5, 6, 7, 8% interest on those, and that would carry the day for most people. And it'd be quote safe. Today, you do that if you're not well set with assets, and you can't pay your rent, you can't buy your prescriptions, you can't, a lot of things. So now what those people are doing, they're having to, when I say gamble, they're having to gamble their money in areas that they have really no ability or propensity to do it, but that's their choice. So I want to just get your feeling about market cycles. Do you believe we're in an era where we're going to see potentially more volatility and disruption, or do you think we're going to get through whatever this is post-COVID and go back to another 10, 11, 12 year kind of a bull run, kind of peaceful cycle where we can kind of sit back on our laurels and just continue the run rate? What would you tell people?
Yeah, well, that's a 3-day conversation.
Yes, it is.
I'll keep it really short.
Okay.
I think we are going to hit a tumultuous time. Look, as an investor myself, I'm a student first, and I'm a huge believer in learning and education. And I have studied, and so this is not me coming up with a lot of this. This is me studying and regurgitating some things, and then looking at what's actually happening and saying, okay, from a 20-year investment career, going through the last cycle and looking forward and projecting what's ahead, where do I think we're at? And I think I'm going to say a couple of things. I think that the long-term debt cycle of the U.S. dollar is at a peak. And I think the reason we are where we are today and not in more turmoil than we already are is because of the dollar's status as the reserve currency of the world. Okay. China doesn't trust Russia. Russia doesn't trust China. They trade with each other using the US dollar. So the reason the dollar is where it is today is because of that fact. Now, I think that while the dollar is at a peak, and the dollar is we're in a fiat currency system, which means there's nothing backing it. So you can print as many dollars as you want. So there's a lot of talk about inflation, and there's a lot of talk about how do you hedge against inflation? What do you do with inflation? I think, and I've read case studies, and I've looked that 48 world empires that have gone through the end of their debt cycle. And one of the things that triggers the end of the debt cycle, when you start to see that a couple things happen, the Fed, the Federal Reserve, plays with interest rates to stimulate or slow down the economy, right? And in 2007, starting August 13th of 2007, when Wall Street stopped buying the debt, it took 14 months for the Fed to ratchet interest rates down to zero. In February, March of 2020, it took 30 days to do the same thing, ratchet interest rates down to zero. That's one of the Fed's primary tools that they utilize to stimulate the economy. The second thing is they print money. When interest rates go down to zero, or as they've brought interest rates down, the next stimulating thing for the economy is to print more dollars, right? And get those dollars into the hands of people, because we're a debt-based system. So they print. The third thing that happens usually only when we're really at the peak of a cycle, an economic or a monetary cycle, is they do stimulus direct to people. And we've seen some of that at the big corporate level. In 2008, we saw the big bailouts. In the last year, we've seen stimulus going right to people's bank accounts. Bypass Wall Street, bypass the big banks, bypass the too big to fail. John and Sally Smith living down the street got a check deposited into their bank account. So those three things, when they start to all three happen, we know we're at an end of an economic or a financial monetary cycle. I think we're going to see a dropping. I mean, the dollar is already declining in value. Every day they print more, our dollars are worth less. And what people don't understand, David, and I'll just end it with this, because we could go all sorts of directions and talk forever. I love this topic. But what people don't understand is that what you want to do, and this is what you beautifully lay out in your book, it is you want to, before the exchange from US dollar 1.0 to US dollar 2.0, or whatever that deleveraging looks like, you want to own assets that have an intrinsic value that produce income before the turmoil and after the turmoil, so that you can collect US dollars 1.0 today. And if tomorrow something changes and the old currency no longer has the value it once had, you own assets that have an intrinsic value that you can now collect cash flow on that asset in the new currency. That's the thing that I think, just to simplify all of the stuff we're talking about, people don't understand. They talk about how real estate investing is a hedge against inflation, and it's a hedge against a declining dollar and all of these things. But fundamentally and simply, it's the bridge. Assets are the bridge that allow you to go from before turmoil to after turmoil with as little pain as possible. That's
a really good analogy. I love that. It is the bridge. Hard assets are the bridge to go convert from, as you said, currency 1.0 to 2.0, whatever it's going to be. That's the key. I think that makes a lot of sense, and a lot of people can take that one home. And I think we really have an understanding as to why we really like the tangible assets that we tend to invest in. Well, Rob Swanson, as you said, we could go on a long time, and we'll do it again. We'll come back and we'll have some more conversations, because I love having these with you. You're well studied. You have a lot of wisdom and experience. You're analytical like a lot of us, and you've looked at the data, and you have a real head for what the headwinds and tailwinds look like going forward. So thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And David, love your book, and get this into the hands of as many people as you can, because it'll change their life.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. See you, brother. All right. Well, we've had some excellent guests on. I hope those of you who are able to be with us for any period of time during the session, got some relevant wisdom and some pearls, and just hopefully a better understanding of why it is so important to own your freedom first. How you can do that in your own life, how you can help your kids and your grandkids and nieces and nephews and the people that you care about, why it's important right now in an era where we have a government and a society, unfortunately, are trying to push us towards more government dependence, exactly the opposite of what this country was founded on over 250 years ago. This is a time, this is a call to arms, which I wrote about in the book in my introduction. This is a call to arms, not to go out in the street and be rebel rousing people that are burning down cities. That is not what we're about. We're about people who do have the authority as citizens of this country to speak our mind and to speak the truth, and realize that our freedoms, as long as they don't infringe on other people's freedoms, that it's our right to follow our freedoms and our path to maintain our personal sovereignty. So thank you so much. I hope that you will order the book, at least one book, copies for your friends. The more we can get this out into more people's hands, the better. And remember, we are also giving the proceeds of all of our pre-launch, which includes today, pre-launch proceeds of the book sales, to the Marine Corps and Law Enforcement Foundation. More information is on our ownyourfreedombook.com page if you want to find out about that organization. Giving scholarships to the families, the children of law enforcement, federal law enforcement officers who have lost their life in fighting for our freedoms. I think that's a worthy cause, and I hope you'll, if for any reason not other than that, you'll buy the book, and money will go to help that very worthy cause. So thank you all very much. Have a great week, and let's go own our freedom.